All right, let's jump into this deep dive on self-image. I'm really excited to dig into the material you sent over. I have a feeling this internal picture we have of ourselves, our self-image, is probably way more powerful than we realize.
Yeah, I think you're going to be surprised by how deep this goes. Your sources don't just mention self-image, they actually break down how it can affect things in our lives.
I saw that. There was one study about job interviews, right?
Exactly. It found that people who had a more positive self-image um, came across as more competent, even when their qualifications were basically the same.
So are you saying that someone's self-image can actually change how other people see them?
It really seems that way. One of your sources even calls self-image a lens. Like, it colors how we view the world and how the world views us.
Whoa, that's a powerful image, that lens idea. Makes you wonder how these lenses even get created in the first place, though. It's not like we're born seeing ourselves a certain way, right?
You're right. It's definitely not all about genetics. Seems to
Mm.
be a combo of nature and nurture.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so early experiences, especially when we're kids, have a huge impact.
Ah, like how you were raised.
Exactly. Like, were you encouraged for your efforts or were you told you weren't good at
Oh,
things?
yeah, those messages must stick with you.
They really do. And then on top of that, we also pick up on cues from the people around us, like their opinions and what they expect from us.
So we're constantly getting feedback from the world, and that ends up shaping our self-image.
Pretty much.
But here's what I'm really curious about. If these lenses are formed by our experiences, can we change them too?
That's the good news, yes. We're not stuck with the self-image we have now. It can be reshaped.
Phew, that's a relief.
Mm,
So many people probably feel trapped by how they see themselves.
definitely. And your sources talk about it as rewiring or realigning your self-image. I like those words because they make it sound like we can actively improve things.
Yeah, it's empowering, right? Not just waiting around hoping to change, but actually doing something. Okay, so we can change. But before we get into the how-to of it all, I want to understand just how far-reaching the effects of self-image really are. Like, how much does it really affect our lives?
It impacts way more than most people think. For example, your sources mention some really cool research on decision making.
Oh, yeah, what was that about?
Well, they followed entrepreneurs for several years. Turns out that the ones with a strong and positive self-image were way more likely to take smart risks.
That makes sense. They'd be more confident.
Exactly. And they were also better at adapting to challenges. So, not surprisingly, they tended to find more success in their businesses.
It's like if you go into a situation thinking you can't do it, you're almost setting yourself up for failure from the get-go.
Totally. It's like that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
What have you heard that one?
Our self-image is kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It affects our thoughts, our actions, and even the results we see in our lives.
So it's not just about careers then?
Nope, not even close. Relationships are a big one too.
Oh, yeah. This is the part that really stood out to me. How a negative self-image can actually make it harder to connect with people.
Yes. It's like we subconsciously confirm our own negative beliefs by, pushing people away.
Or not letting ourselves be vulnerable.
Exactly. But on the flip side, when we see ourselves as worthy of love and connection, we're more likely to build strong, supportive relationships.
Okay, so this inner picture of ourselves can actually affect our external world. It's wild.
It really is. Your self-image influences your confidence, your decisions, your relationships, even how you handle challenges.
Now that you mention it, I did see some studies about self-image and resilience.
Right. One of your sources found that people with a stronger self-image tend to bounce back from setbacks more quickly.
They probably see challenges as opportunities instead of roadblocks.
You got it. And they stay more optimistic overall.
So it's not just about feeling good. It's about being equipped to handle the tough stuff that life throws at us.
You said it. And the best part is, the material you sent goes beyond just talking about the problem. There are actually solutions for improving self-image.
I'm all ears.
We're not just talking about positive thinking here either. These are real techniques backed by evidence that can help us change how we see ourselves.
All right, let's hear it. Where do we begin this self-image makeover?
Well, one of the most common techniques you'll find in your sources is the power of affirmations.
Affirmation.
I know it sounds a little cheesy,
Just a bit.
but hear me out. We're not talking about mindlessly chanting vague phrases. It's about choosing positive statements, ones that align with the person you want to become.
So instead of just saying, I am awesome,
Mm.
you'd be more specific.
Right. If you struggle with self-doubt at work, maybe your affirmation is, I am capable of learning new skills, or I am worthy of success.
So you target it to your own insecurities.
Exactly. And what's crazy is even if you don't totally believe it at first, saying these affirmations over and over, well, it can actually start to rewire your subconscious mind.
You're training your brain to see yourself differently. Speaking of training, that reminds me of visualization. It's another
Yeah.
technique mentioned in the material, right?
Yep. And it's not just for athletes either.
So how does it work for improving self-image?
Basically, you create a super clear mental picture of yourself embodying the qualities you want to have.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you get nervous in social situations. You might visualize yourself walking into a party, feeling confident and at ease, talking to people effortlessly.
Like a mental practice run.
Exactly. And the more detailed you make that visualization, the more your brain starts to believe it's possible.
I love that. You're basically planting these seeds of confidence in your subconscious. Our minds are so receptive to these techniques, but it's not all about our internal world, is it? The people around us must play a role too, right?
Absolutely. Your sources are big on the importance of your support circle. The people
Mhm.
you surround yourself with can make a huge difference.
How so?
Think of it like trying to grow a delicate flower in a really harsh environment.
That's not going to go very well.
Nope. And it's the same with our self-image. If you're always around negativity or people who put you down, it's going to be way harder to grow.
So you're saying we need to surround ourselves with people who lift us up.
Exactly. People who encourage you, who see the best in you. You need that supportive environment for your self-image to really thrive.
Okay, I'm getting it. So we've got affirmations to reprogram our thoughts, visualization to train our minds, and a good support network. That sounds like a pretty solid foundation for self-image transformation.
It is. But the cool thing is, there's even more. Your sources go beyond these basics and offer some really unique and powerful practices as well.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about those.
We'll dive into them in the next part of our deep dive.
This is fascinating stuff.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
We've covered a lot already, so I think it's a good place to pause. Make sure to come back for part 2, where we'll unlock even more secrets to creating a strong and empowering self-image.
See you then.
Okay, I'm ready for those unique self-image practices you mentioned. The ones that go beyond the usual affirmations and visualization. What do you got?
Well, your sources have some really creative stuff, actually. One that caught my eye is daily gratitude for personal qualities.
Daily gratitude, I get that. But for personal qualities.
Yeah, it's like regular gratitude practice, but you focus on appreciating things about yourself.
Instead of being grateful for, like, material possessions or whatever.
Exactly. It's so easy to get caught up in what we want to change about ourselves that we forget to acknowledge our good qualities.
That's true.
So your sources suggest taking a few minutes each day to write down 3 things, even little things, that you genuinely value about yourself.
So it could be anything, like having a good sense of humor, being a patient listener, or being creative.
Yeah, exactly. The key is to focus on what you genuinely appreciate.
It's like giving yourself a little pep talk.
Yeah, and over time, those little acknowledgments can really boost your self-worth.
I like that. It's simple, but it can make a big difference. Speaking of making a difference, what about that technique called embody your ideal self in small actions? That one sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's all about taking those big aspirational qualities you want to have and breaking them down into small, everyday actions.
Okay, I'm following. Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you want to be more confident.
A classic goal.
Instead of waiting for confidence to just appear, you can start practicing it in small ways.
What kind of ways?
It could be as simple as speaking up in a meeting when you normally wouldn't, or offering to help a colleague with something, or even just striking up a conversation with someone new.
So it's about taking action, even if it's a small action, to move closer to who you want to be.
Exactly. You're basically proving to yourself that you're capable of change.
I like that. Each little step reinforces the bigger goal.
And that brings us to another cool technique. Vision board for your inner world.
Vision board for your inner world.
Yeah, it's like the traditional vision board, but instead of focusing on external stuff, you focus on the qualities you want to develop internally.
Okay, so instead of picturing my dream house, I'd be picturing, like, inner peace and resilience.
Exactly. You could use images, quotes, anything that represents those qualities.
And then I'd put it somewhere I see it every day.
Right. It becomes a visual reminder of the kind of person you're working towards becoming.
It's like anchoring your aspirations in something tangible.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. This next practice really resonates with me. self-compassion through difficult moments. Because let's face it, we all mess up sometimes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's how we talk to ourselves in those moments that really matters. One of your sources puts it perfectly. Talk to yourself like you would to someone you love.
That's so true.
It's easy to be hard on ourselves when we make mistakes.
Way too easy.
But what if we treated ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer a friend?
It's a total game changer.
Right. Instead of beating yourself up, you can choose to see those moments as opportunities for growth.
It's about recognizing that we're all a work in progress.
Exactly. Setbacks are inevitable, they're just part of the journey. And the more self-compassion you practice, the more resilient you become.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like you're building this inner safety net so you can bounce back from anything. Okay, what about that self-image journal you mentioned earlier? I love journaling, but I've never specifically used it for my self-image.
It's pretty simple. The idea is to have a journal dedicated to recording those moments when you feel proud of yourself or confident or aligned with your ideal self.
So if I gave a great presentation at work, I'd write about it.
Exactly. Or if you navigated a tough conversation really well, or even just a day where you felt good in your own skin.
It's like creating a collection of all the times you were your best self.
Yeah, it's easy to focus on the negative, so this helps you shift your attention to the positive.
It's like proof that you're capable of amazing things.
Exactly. And when those days of self-doubt hit, you can look back and remind yourself of how far you've come.
That's brilliant. Okay, what about this last technique? Surrounding yourself with uplifting influences.
Well, we're constantly bombarded with messages that can affect our self-image.
True. Social media, advertising, even the news.
We can't control everything, but we can be more mindful of what we let into our mental space.
So that means being picky about who I follow on social media, what books I read, the movies I watch.
Yeah, it's about seeking out sources of inspiration and positivity, and surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, not drag you down.
It's like creating a healthy diet for your mind. This has been such a great exploration of all these different techniques. It's clear that improving self-image is an ongoing journey, not just a quick fix.
Totally agree. It's a process of continuous growth. And while all these techniques we've talked about are super helpful, there's one more crucial aspect of self-image we need to explore.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. What is it?
We've talked about how self-image affects us internally and in our relationships. But what if it can actually shape the world around us, like literally create our reality?
Whoa, hold on. Now you've really got my attention.
That's what we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
I can't wait to explore this connection between our self-image and the reality we experience. This is getting really deep. To our listener, be sure to join us for part 3, where we'll uncover even more fascinating insights into this powerful force within each of us. Okay, so back to this idea that our self-image might actually shape our reality. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one.
It sounds kind of wild, right? But your sources actually have some pretty convincing evidence.
Like what?
Well, they talk about how self-image acts as a filter. It doesn't just affect how we see the world, but it also influences the opportunities that show up in our lives.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but on a much bigger scale.
I think I get it. So if you believe you're capable and worthy of success, you're more likely to go after it.
Exactly. And the act of going after it, of taking risks and pushing yourself, actually increases your chances of success.
So it's like our self-image sets the stage, and then our actions create the play.
I like that. A perfect analogy. And on the other hand, if we're stuck with a negative self-image, we might unknowingly sabotage ourselves.
In what way?
Well, we might avoid opportunities, back away from challenges. We might even twist neutral events into proof that we're not good enough.
Oh, wow. So we end up creating a reality that just reinforces our negative beliefs.
That's the danger. But the good news is it works both ways. If we can shift our self-image to a more positive one, we can change our reality too.
So it's not just about feeling better about ourselves, it's about actually changing our lives.
It's about both. Your sources emphasize that self-image isn't fixed. We can actively change it through conscious effort.
And as we change our self-image, what happens?
We open ourselves up to new possibilities, new experiences. We quite literally create a new reality for ourselves.
Okay, I am starting to see the power here. It's like we're the artists of our own lives, and self-image is the brush we use.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, this journey isn't about becoming perfect. It's about accepting yourself, flaws and all. It's about building a self-image that helps you grow and be happy.
It's about recognizing that you're worthy, just as you are.
Exactly. And as you cultivate a more positive self-image, it starts to have a ripple effect.
A ripple effect. What do you mean?
It impacts not only your life, but also your interactions with everyone around you.
So when we feel good about ourselves, we make others feel good too.
It's like that, yeah. When you're confident and positive, you naturally treat others with more kindness, you contribute more to your community, you inspire the people around you.
It's like a chain reaction of positivity.
Exactly. And it all starts with that initial shift in your own self-image.
Wow, this has been eye-opening. I really feel like I have a whole new understanding of the power of self-image.
I'm glad to hear that. But remember, the real work starts now. You've got to take these insights and actually apply them in your own life.
You're right. It's time to put all this into practice. So, to our listener out there, I'm going to leave you with this. Now that you've learned all about self-image, what's one small thing you can do today to start shaping yours? Maybe it's writing down an affirmation or creating that vision board we talked about. Or maybe it's just taking a moment to appreciate something you love about yourself.
Every small step counts. Every act of self-love, no matter how tiny, helps you create a more positive and powerful self-image.
And that, in turn, can change your entire life.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of self-image. It's been an amazing journey.
It really has. Thanks for having me.
And to our listener, we'll see you on our next deep dive.